Major funding for Telehell is provided by Dave's Archives. At Dave's Archives, he personally transfers, archives, and preserves classic commercials from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s and shares them with you. Don't forget about his Friday night live stream on, well, guess when? Go to davesarchives.com. By RetroCirc on YouTube. Do you love retro commercials with an original twist? Join the best mimes this side of the internet for a dose of nostalgia every week at RetroCirc, spelled with a Q at the end. RetroCirc, where nostalgia is the main attraction. By Kier's Nostalgia Corner, a collection of commercial compilations, retro nostalgic things, and other random things that come to mind. Look for her on YouTube at KIERS Nostalgia Corner, and don't forget to check out her live streams early in the week. By Kev the Ripper on YouTube, home to some of the most obscure TV shows you may or may not have heard of, all with original commercials and all not seen since their original air dates. It's Kev the Ripper at KEVRIPZ. And by the very generous benefactors who grace us on our Patreon at patreon.com/telehellpodcast, including Rhonda Farrell, Rick Kalacki Jr., Chris Michaud, Meredith Morrissey, Rabite, Matt Seelig, Spare Parts, and Neil Weinstein. Thank you. We've spoken a number of times on how fame affects different people in different ways, and that depending on how you handle it, you could take your career to new heights, come crashing down to earth, or more often than not, stay somewhere in the middle. And nowhere can one's fame be measured more precisely than in that of a thing called the eponymous vanity project, which is a fancy way of saying have your name in the title of the show to see how much crowd-drawing power you truly have, or in a more condensed sense of the word, the self-titled series. It may seem like a gigantic ego boost to some, but once upon a time, there were TV shows that people tuned in simply based on the name recognition that the star of the show would carry. Thing is, only some of those shows would quickly learn that no man or woman is an island upon themselves. And while it may be their name on the title, deep down they know that they can only be as good as the supporting players they bring along the way. Andy Griffith was the star of his own sitcom, but co-star Don Knotts won 5 Emmy Awards playing a more popular character on that show, to say nothing of how the kid playing his young son went on to have an acclaimed career as a movie maker. Or how even though this show had Dick Van Dyke's name on it, he and series creator Carl Reiner made sure that his co-stars were on equal footing. And in another case, one of the co-stars of that show would not only repeat the process, they would bring it to perfection.
You might just make it after all.
Which, more or less, is why TV shows that are named for the major star that headlines it tends to be successful. They have the foresight to shine the spotlight on everybody else that inhabits the show, coupled with sharply written stories. A formula that tended to mutate more than a couple of times, causing those shows that followed to fail miserably at capturing lightning in a bottle. We could go on with other examples, but since the website TV Tropes has a list of hundreds of these shows, we'll try not to waste too much of your time. Point is, there's a right way to do a self-titled series, and there's a wrong way. For the next 3 shows, we would like to present a few examples of what happens when the ego is so big for some that it feels like they will become invincible to even the most ridiculous of concepts. In the case of today's subject, however, the ridiculousness of the concept is enhanced by the use and subsequent waste of pen and ink.
Saturday, when those dancing feet hit the streets, hold on tight, he's out of sight.
Let's get swinging, Hammerman.
Local TV on NBC.
And now,
Feelings, nothing more than feelings.
I can get cash for this gold medallion of me wearing a gold medallion.
That's not what it's all about. If my brother's over taking in the vault, go to him.
it's the bonfire of vanity projects.
Proper.
In Telehell.
Stop. Hammer time.
Can't touch this. You can't touch this.
His birth name is Stanley Kirk Burrell. His hometown is Oakland, California. His life story, depending on who you ask, could be described a number of ways. A rags to riches to rags and back again story, a template for VH1 documentaries back when they still cared about music, a cautionary tale on what fame can do to you when you don't know how to handle it, or even a man who found his true riches by rebranding himself as a performer on our opposition's side. But let it be known up front that I truly feel that MC Hammer's story is not only a fascinating one, but it's also one that's still being told to this day, sometimes with great reverence. With that said, I will try my best not to drag Hammer the man through the mud too much here, especially on his ill-fated financial decisions that doomed him in the mid to late 1990s, and instead talk about the path he paved leading up to today's subject. He spent his early years growing up in the inner cities of Oakland. He and his 5 other siblings did what they could to help support their family during tough times. One of the things that he did to make a buck was perform various dance moves in the parking lot of the Oakland Coliseum, ultimately leading to a job working in the front office of what used to be the Oakland A's baseball team. While he was working there, a then up-and-coming player named Reggie Jackson would give young Stanley the first major piece of his future showbiz identity, stating in a 2003 documentary for HBO, quote, "Hell, our chief executive, the guy that ran our team that communicated with Charlie Finley, the top man there, was a 13-year-old kid. I nicknamed him Hammer because he looked like Hank Aaron, whose nickname was also the Hammer," end quote. And thus, the legend of the Hammer was born.
Stop. Hammer time.
As far as how it got the MC attached to it, while he was still doing office duties for the A's, young Hammer was honing his craft in the still gestating world of rap and hip-hop. Whenever the baseball team was on the road, Hammer would test his material at various clubs across the country, eventually earning him a Master of Ceremonies title wherever he went, or MC for short. By the 1980s, young Hammer needed something to do in between baseball seasons as well as a stint in the Navy. So he turned his focus onto the continually rising hip-hop movement happening in the country. By the mid-1980s, Hammer would continue to become an emerging talent in an emerging field, first collaborating with other up-and-coming talents and groups until ultimately striking big on his own. His first solo album, called Feel My Power, was a modest hit by indie record label standards, selling over 60,000 copies in its first run. But the album went from modest hit to slightly larger hit thanks to repeated airplay on local radio in the San Francisco Bay Area, large enough for Hammer to gain the attention of music-making monolith Capitol Records, who soon signed him to a multi-album contract and millions of dollars to go with it. Afterwards, Feel My Power was re-released with additional songs, and a new second album would be released upon the signing with Capitol, 1988's Let's Get It Started. Only this time around, upwards of 2 million copies will be sold, making Hammer one of the hottest commodities in music. But in spite of how fast he became a superstar and how much faster he was able to spend his newfound riches, he needed just one more thing to elevate himself to pop culture icon status. What he needed was a signature song that would almost instantly and intrinsically identify Hammer for the rest of his life. The winter of 1990 brought about his third album called Please Hammer, Don't Hurt 'Em. And while a few singles from the album were released first during that winter, in April of 1990, the floodgates opened.
Can't touch this.
Thanks in small part to sampling the bass line from Rick James' hit Super Freak, You Can't Touch This was the song that would turn MC Hammer into a true phenomenon. Though strangely enough, despite heavy airplay and a number 27 chart debut, Can't Touch This only stopped as high as number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. However, the album itself was a number 1 success for 21 weeks, primarily due to this single, the first time ever for a recording on the pop charts. Still though, that one song on that one album was all Hammer needed to be forever enshrined into the world of pop culture. Everything else that followed would be gravy. moderately expensive gravy.
Hammers in effect and I'm ready to walk. Step, step, stepping with class. Oh, so funky and they're moving fast. Oh, 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 British Knights. Gold, gold, glittering pants and a cool boom box with a beat to dance. MC Hammer Time.
Call 1-900-909-MCMC.
Call us on out. Now is the time. You might hear a joke or a couple of rhymes.
Not unlike some of his other contemporaries of that era, Hammer was able to use his success to sell just about anything, anywhere, anytime.
Toshiba Cockpit. Cockpit.
Of course, the true mark of just how big a star one could become can be seen in a way that we've seen a number of times before, by transforming into an animated cartoon version of yourself. And before we go any further, it's been a little while since I bored you with actual educational content for our ongoing Showbiz Glossary segments. So with that, here's a word or two about product licensing. Say you're someone or something that turns out to be super popular and other people want to take a piece of you, but you want to do it in a way that's both legally binding and profitably lucrative for all parties involved. That's where product licensing comes in. A legal agreement where the product's copyright holder or the licensor grants another company, the licensee, the right to manufacture, sell, or use their product in a specific region or for a specific purpose, often in exchange for a fee or royalty. For instance, there's exclusive licensing, where the licensor grants the licensee the sole right to use the intellectual property in a specific territory or a specific purpose. There's non-exclusive licensing, where the licensor can grant multiple licensees the right to use the intellectual property. And then there's also sole licensing, where the licensor grants the licensee the exclusive right to use the intellectual property and no one else, but the licensor retains the right to use it as well. Here's a few examples. Are you a breakout character from a popular TV show?
Did I do that?
Well, if you're a company with deep pockets, that character can be used to sell whatever you want.
Let me introduce you to the Urkel doll. He's got my looks, my laugh, my voice, and all. Can I do that?
Did you have a successful movie?
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Well then, be very shrewd with product licensing and you can make billions of dollars more off of toys.
These and other toys and games in Kenner's Star Wars collection are sold separately. Batteries are not included.
And what about the other way around, where you already have the successful toys?
G.I. Joe by Hasbro. He talks.
Well, if you've got enough pocket change, you can use product licensing to turn it into a TV series. G.I. Joe! I don't know what it was with animation and leeching off of the successes of others back in the day, other than to make a quick buck on a cheap cash-in. But in my opinion, it seemed to have happened a little too much in the 70s, 80s, and especially the 90s, when original thoughts and ideas were abandoned in favor of, let's take a hot property, put it in a fantastical situation, and see what happens next. It happened to the shows that we mentioned in our top 6 dumbest animated adaptations.
Episode 68.
It happened with the athletes who appeared in Pro Stars.
Episode 86.
It happened to the new Kids on the Block.
Episode 94.
And now it's about to happen to MC Hammer. And who better to help repeat the process is a repeat offender.
Deke.
And I want to be clear here. The Deke Animation Company has had more than their fair share of successful cartoons back in their day. But as sure as every up must have their down, so must Deke in terms of their output. Just in the 1980s and early 90s alone, Deke not only threw their money around to the likes of New Kids and 3 sports stars, but they also shelled out untold millions licensing existing brand name superstars, toy lines, and franchises, such as Alf, Heathcliff, Hello Kitty, Lady Lovely Locks, The Get Along Gang, Rainbow Bright, Teddy Ruxpin, The Care Bears, Dennis the Menace, Beanie and Cecil, Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World. Well, to be fair, Nintendo in general at the time.
Excuse me,
princess.
The Bill and Ted movies.
Excellent!
The Swamp Thing comic book and movie franchise. The Wizard of Oz. Where's Waldo? The waning years of both Alvin and the Chipmunks and G.I. Joe. And enough left over to license out the rights to other actual human beings, like John Candy, Macaulay Culkin, Hulk Hogan, and of course, I promise we're getting there, MC Hammer. Who, through an arrangement between his production company, Bustin' Productions Incorporated, international music distributor BMG, and Deke Animation's production companies both in the United States, Canada, and somehow Italy and Spain, all pooled their resources together to convince the ABC network to put this on their already unbeatable Saturday morning lineup. What's more, they thought they had a can't-miss concept that would expose MC Hammer's music to a younger audience. Whereas New Kids on the Block had animated versions of themselves going around the world getting into shenanigans, and Pro Stars had athletes running what was essentially a spy agency, Hammer's animated show would be far different. For you see, this was to be a superhero show! Yeah, MC Hammer was going to be a crime-fighting superhero with powers. And before you go thinking to yourself, wow, that's a stupid idea, just wait, because the way that he gains those powers is a story in itself, which we will start to tell
after the break.
MC Hammer, rap star and Pepsi drinker. Well, today, we secretly replaced his Pepsi with Coke. Let's see what happens. Feelings, nothing more than feelings. Feelings of love. Yo, Hammer! Problem.
This week on Telehell's premium content of The Damned.
I was working as a conductor for Sinatra then, and arranging for Sinatra in Vegas. And Stanley and I become friends through Benny Carter. And he said, we got 3 great pilots out here. Take your pick.
And one was medical, and...
One was, I think, Marcus Welby. And another one with Les Crane and Ida Lupino.
Which was I Love a Mystery.
Yes, that's right. And Ironside. And I just, I don't know, somehow just connected to the casting and everything else in Ironside. It just had it spoke to you, you know. And
The only way to listen to Telehell's premium content of The Damned is by becoming a patron at patreon.com/telehellpodcast. For just a few bucks a month, you can listen to our premium content and get some swag along the way. Once again, that's patreon.com/telehellpodcast. And now, back to this week's torture.
September 7th, 1991. We already mentioned what was important about this day in, let me see, Little Shop, episode 24. And at 10 a.m., 9 a.m. Central, all the details of what this show is about can be heard in the show's theme song, which we will not be listening to in this review. Let me explain. First of all, a minor spoiler alert that we're going to do an episode down the line about annoying TV theme songs. I'd like to save just a little time and energy just to talk about this audible torture tactic when the time comes. Second, the lyrics to this theme song, while heavily descriptive, are probably the most inane and idiotic combination of words ever put together in any kind of medium. And the last thing you need to hear is an inane idiot like myself reading them off to you. And third, as much as we're about to rip into this show for a wide variety of other reasons, something that we try to do around here among the trashing is attempt to restore a little dignity to some of the offending subjects. So, with that, I've recruited the services of the greatest Shakespearean actor to be currently residing in hell to recite the words to the theme song in the style of a Shakespeare sonnet. Ladies and gentlemans, it is my pleasure to present to you the following recitation of the Hammerman theme song by Baron Lord Sir Pennington J. Thistlewhistle, Esquire, GBE. Take it away, sir.
Hammerman. Hammer. Hammerman. Hammer. Whenever there's a crime, dem crooks are gonna do time. They all better beware, 'cause the Hammerman will be there. Here's how it started.
Talk.
A long time ago. The legend of the hammer and how it began to grow. He was given magical shoes from a hip-hop Motown dude. Together, they had power. They stood up for what was right. But Gramps was getting old, and he couldn't keep up the fight.
Right.
So Gramps and his granddaughter, they went out on the road.
Searching.
To find the man they knew could jam, who was worthy of the load. They met a guy named Stanley. Who was dancing every night. He let the kids play every day. His heart was out of sight. So Gramps opened up the bag and took out the magical shoes. He set them on the ground and they began to groove. The shoes knew at once they had finally found their man. They hopped right on his feet, and he became Hammerman. Hammerman. Hammer. Hammerman. Hammer. Hammerman. Hammer. Hammerman. Hammer. Ooh, yeah.
Bravo, sir, bravo! That might be the most dignity this show will ever receive. Seriously, though, that was a great read, but I'm a little curious. Why is a man of such enormous talent here in hell?
If you must know, I was a little too immersed in method acting. I was rehearsing for a role as a kickboxing minister for a program on the BBC. I was practicing my moves at a cathedral in Manchester when I lost my equilibrium and then accidentally kicked one of the nuns in their bosom. The force of the kick was so powerful that it wound up propelling the poor nun into a vestibule of holy water. Sure, she wound up extra blessed, but by that point, I knew my fate was sealed. From that point forward, I knew I was condemned to hell. No matter how many Hail Marys I performed, or how much money I gave to charity, I was fucked.
Thank you, Sir Thistlewhistle. Now then, in the tradition of shows like Fat Albert, the new Three Stooges cartoon, and Chuck Norris Karate Commandos, among others, the show begins with an introduction from Hammer himself telling us viewers and the platoon of child actor dancers what today's show is all about.
So check this out. Anybody like graffiti?
No.
Why not?
It ruins it.
Because most people put it where they're not supposed to. Now, it can be good, but it's not right when you put it on other people's property. And that's what the show is all about today. Jody goes all around Oaktown putting graffiti everywhere on everybody's property, and she gets in trouble. As a matter of fact, the graffiti comes alive.
What?
I wasn't supposed to tell you that. But let's check it out right here on Hammerman. We kicking it off today.
Right, kick it.
Okay. Why would you give away practically the entire story of the episode in that introduction? You've only been on the air for 2 minutes. I mean, you gotta build up to the fact that graffiti will come to life. Leave the audience guessing a little bit. I mean, it's like giving out a Christmas present on the 4th of July. It's jumping the gun too soon. What's more, the title of the episode, Defeated Graffiti, is also a spoiler given away too soon. I mean, clearly this means that Hammerman is going to defeat the graffiti, since this is a TV show where he saves the day on a weekly basis. Dumping all the exposition before the exposition is actually played out is just going to give kids a reason to flip over to Garfield and Friends on CBS. It's just plain counterproductive. But overexposure of plot lines are the least of this show's problems. And folks, this problem leads to problems of our own around here. As many of you know, this podcast is an audio program. It's been that way for all this time, and it'll take an act of the opposition upstairs to change all of that. But the show that we're reviewing is an animated cartoon, something that relies very heavily on it being a visual medium, hard to convey in an audio format. We mention this because if you've ever seen even 1 second of Hammerman in your lifetime, first of all, that's 2 seconds too many. But more importantly, you'll already know that not only is this one of the least competently animated TV shows that ever existed, but we can all but guarantee that the words, "I wish you could see this," will be uttered once every few minutes. And I know what you're thinking. What about the title sequence? Was the animation smooth in that? Exactly. The title sequence was supposed to look good because that's how they're supposed to hook you into watching the show, aside from a rambling, monotonous rap disguised as a theme song. And that's probably where 50% of the show's budget went. And believe me, Hammerman is not the only show to have used this tune-in tactic. So, with that, for the rest of the review, as much as I want to comment on how lousy the animation is on this show, it's pretty much impossible to do at this juncture. And instead, I will only be commenting on the overall story content of this episode. Hopefully, this is a fair trade for us all. Anyway, Act 1 begins with kids dancing as though they were the original construction paper cutouts from the pilot episode of South Park, when, all of a sudden, that hip-hop Motown dude offers a critique.
Your rap is fine, but get a load of grams. Back in my day, we could really play. Do the grams, do the grams, do the grams. Wait, there's more. I may be old, but my feet are cold. Do the grams.
Well, that's one way for the elderly to move around, but how about this?
And all over America, people were doing a dance called the Funky Grandpa. Oh, I'm the...
Anyway, after cosplaying as James Brown, trouble's a brewing as the local library is on fire. And what a well-coordinated fire it is, as, I wish you could see this, the flames seem to want to do a conga line on the flagpole en route to the doomed librarian.
Help! Oh, goodness! Ah! Ah! Oh, my! Oh, goodness! Oh, goodness! And oh, my! Ah! We need the hammer! Ooh, look!
Oh, right. I should probably introduce you to a few of the town regulars. The ladies that are literally singing Hammer's praises are a pair of fly girls voiced by a single person on a doubled-up soundtrack. A thankless job for music and voiceover veteran Carmen Twilly. The fly girls themselves are largely ornamental, acting as a Greek chorus, letting people know that the Hammerman would be there. Speaking of which...
The fire is pumping and the flames are burning. The books get cooking, let me get the tables turning. Stop! Hammer time.
And in the tradition of various shows involving the likeness of famous people, Hammer himself does not actually voice his animated counterpart. That job went to another acting veteran, Clark Johnson, who would later go on to do much better work on shows like Homicide and The Wire, proving once again that there is life after crap, but I digress. The best way I can describe how Hammer rescues the librarian in distress from the fire, and again, I wish you could see this, is by spawning music notes and treble clefs from his hand as if it were Spider-Man's web slinger, and then glide down to the ground in safety. And to make even less sense of it all, a random baseball umpire is there to confirm that safety. So that's a thing that happened, but what about the fire? How does Hammerman put it out? Well, thanks to the choppiest dance moves one could ever see, Hammerman spawns more music notes from the ground, which then march down the street to inhabit the structure of a water tower. Just go with me. Which then marches down the street to put out the fire. Hey, if the Ghostbusters can make the Statue of Liberty come to life with pink slime, I'll buy anything at this point.
Take a bow.
And just as the water tower, I guess, relieves itself, what superhero show would be complete without action graphics a la 1960s Batman? In this case, the water tower is so relieved that it actually lets out a sploosh.
Total sploosh.
Actually, yeah, gotta give him the sploosh.
Once the job is completed, Hammer takes off the magical shoes and returns to his civilian self. Just in time for...
Thanks, Gramps, but I couldn't have done it without the shoes.
You got that right.
Oh, and the shoes talk. Have I mentioned this yet? I think it feels like I should mention this, but yeah, the shoes talk. They high-five each other with their shoelaces, and parents the world over wonder if their kid's breakfast cereal was laced with peyote.
Hey, my shoes are talking too.
Don't worry. We won't hurt you. We only want to have some fun.
Because it's not far-fetched enough for one of the biggest stars in music to have superhero powers, but let's also have the source of his power be a sentient, anthropomorphic, wacky sidekick as well.
I don't know, Gramps. I'm not sure I got time for this superhero stuff.
Yeah, you do too. You're the man.
I sure appreciate it, but I'm not sure you picked the right guy.
Yes, we did.
What do you mean we? I saw him first.
You're lying, though, for I did. I'm gonna notch your laces.
Oh, I'm gonna tweak your tongue.
Oh, yeah? Give me your...
Hey, quiet down.
Now, credit where credit is due. At least the shoes do more than Muttley has ever or will ever do. So now we get to Hammerman's version of Clark Kent. Only instead of working for a great metropolitan newspaper, he devotes his time to a local rec center and helps enrich the lives of the youth that go there.
So, how's your painting coming?
Okay, maybe this one's good enough to let you look at.
Oh, no! Jody, hold this leak while I go get a wrench.
This is a drag. Oh, man! My painting! Winnie, look! My picture's been ruined!
I can't look right now, Jody. Later, okay?
Yes, why worry about busted pipes flooding up the rec center when nobody notices the ruined painting? Seriously though, local rec centers and YMCA should offer courses on how to prioritize things. Meanwhile, another character emerges called Showbiz, the show's resident get-rich-quick schemer. He passed the time out thusly.
Let me tell you, Stanley, my manly. Tuba!
But...
It's the wave of your future.
Showbiz, are you crazy? I gotta help Winnie fix the pipes.
And that was the character Showbiz. Some say a waste of time. Others call him a waste of animation. Regardless, all that wasted time in animation sends young Jody running out of the rec center because, for some reason, she thinks people are ignoring her. Considering the rec center is being flooded with water right now, middle child syndrome is fleeting in comparison.
Trouble on the way. Don't paint today. Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh, thanks for that. As we now meet up with another character named Joker. Oh, too obvious.
What have we got here? A fucking comedian, Private Joker.
Oh, not obvious enough.
Joker.
Just play the damn clip already.
Hey, Joker.
Hey, Jody.
What's that?
It's my tag. People see that and they know I've been here.
Really?
Sure. You wanna try?
Oh, I don't know. It doesn't seem right.
What's the matter? You can't draw?
Huh. Of course I can draw. Just check this out, homie.
All the while, our villain of the episode muses on how tagging a wall could somehow lead to world domination.
That little graffiti sweetie is exactly what I, DeFacely Marmeister, have been looking for.
Oh, for the love of... DeFacely Marmeister? You can fill up a dartboard with random words, throw a few darts at the board, and come up with a much better name than that. But that's the name we're gonna be stuck with as we get to learn the rest of his...
secret plan, revenge on my mind.
Finally, my sinister scheme can go into action. I'll use that little girl to paint this town into a monstrous corner and paint myself rich.
But before we hear the, actual details of what the plan is, back to the rec center where the plumbing problem and the odd tuba interlude come together to fix the leak. Just go with me on this, please. While Gramps once again tells the origin story of how he and his granddaughter went out on the road
searching
to find the man they knew who could jam, who was worthy of the load. Oh, great. Now I'm reciting the theme song.
Now I know life's been real hard on her. Well, with having no parents, spending all that time traveling around with me, looking for the right person to wed and choose.
She's a good kid, Gramps.
I just want to give my granddaughter the home she deserves here in the Oak Town. Keep her out of trouble.
Stanley, I've been watching you. You have not been practicing your tuba.
Showbiz once again, ladies and gentlemans. A bigger waste of animation than the 5 or 6 frames in a loop that they use to make Muttley laugh. Anyway, Jody becomes adept at making graffiti, but perhaps a little too good, as she's approached by a mysterious stranger.
You for real, Mr. Marmeister? All this stuff is for free?
That's right, my perky little Picasso.
What's the catch?
No catch. I'm from the mayor's office.
Yeah, that's it, Ticket.
And we want your help in beautifying our lovely city.
Seeing as we're apparently unfamiliar with the term stranger danger in 1991, of course Jody goes ahead and paints the town red, yellow, green, and all the other colors of the rainbow at the behest of a supervillain. For the right price, of course.
I will pay, the mayor will pay $100 to the children who paint this kind of design on bank walls all over the city.
$100? Come on, Jody, it's time to tag the hood.
Doesn't look good. No.
Yeah, thanks again for that. After tagging the town left and right, it's time for... DeFacely Marmeister, dumb name, to unleash his...
secret plan!
While those kids are busy painting the town, we'll test out the final coat of my malicious multicolored mayhem-making paint potion. I love being a bad guy. It works! And now, it's time to give Oaktown the works!
And once again, I wish you could see this. The paintings start to come to life thanks to the most stilted animation you will ever see. Of course, you could check out the episode on YouTube. I mean, several dozen people have uploaded that particular show for some reason, so it's not like it's in witness protection or anything. But again, you have to take my word for it. Meanwhile, at the Legion of Shoes...
Are we ever gonna get any action? I'm so bored.
Oh, just chill. Got any aces?
You got any?
Hey, cut it out!
What out?
You were looking at my cards.
Was not.
With two?
Not.
Two.
Okay, it has to be asked. Was it really necessary, in a show that's already fantastical beyond belief, to have talking shoes as a side character? I mean, you already had MC Hammer as a superhero. That's more than enough suspension of disbelief for a show like this. Meanwhile, the shoes are all comic relief as if they're gunning for their own spin-off, or maybe even a lead role in a reboot of The Red Shoes once they get inevitably reupholstered.
The Red Shoes,
artists, daring the original musical that captures all the glamour of the south of France in exquisite Technicolor.
And if that reference is in the millionth percentile for any of you out there, I'm just trying to keep my brain sharp while watching this crap, and I hope I'm doing the same for you as you're listening. Anyway, to keep your brain from melting even further, we're about to embark on another one of those cliches that I can't stand. That of the old switcheroo. This is where 1 minute a person is carrying something, most often a briefcase or a bag or whatever. They place it down for just a moment, just as another person comes by and rests a very similar looking bag right next to that one, only for the other person to take the second bag by mistake.
I hate that cliche.
But yeah, this happens for Hammer, who accidentally leaves his magic talking shoes behind just as the killer graffiti wreaks havoc on the city.
Well, if I can't have superpowers, I better have a super plan. Hello? Police? Yo, get over here quick. Yeah, there's a guy trying to rob the entire city. You got to stop him. He's bringing all the graffiti to life.
You miserable meddler! I'm gonna paint you right out of the picture!
Yeah, I think the Deke animators are well ahead of you there. And still, once again, I wish you could see this, but the frame rate of the animation is so appalling that they couldn't even animate a close-up of the villain's maniacal laugh correctly. It's just the same 2 frames of his lips going up and down over and over and over.
Suck it, Walt Disney.
Furthermore, sweet Lucifer, couldn't they have broken this act into shorter pieces? I'm watching the original broadcast of this, and that entire first act was 11 minutes long, which is perfectly fine for prime-time shows, but when you're dealing with a much younger audience with much shorter attention spans, you may want to consider scaling it back by a minute or two, because there are still 3 other networks out there that are still airing cartoons on Saturdays back then. If you bore them too much, they might do something drastic, like, I don't know, going outside to play. But again, I digress. As Act 2 begins with Hammer in a bind. His shoes are nowhere to be found as he's tackling the graffiti monster completely powerless. What is a Hammer to do?
Marmeister, you're just doing this because you had an unhappy childhood. You want to talk about it?
No, I like being unhappy. I like making other people unhappy. So eat paint, Big Mouth. Let's see how you like Dr. Lackey's remix of my Marmeister's malicious multicolored mayhem-making paint potion.
In other words, our villain just invented his own version of the Dip from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Then I'll try him, convict him, and execute him.
We still mourn your loss, Squeaky Shoe. May you continue to rest in peace. So, with Hammer getting erased, more graffiti creatures come to life, and more parents around the world wonder if their children's breakfast cereal has been laced with hallucinogens.
Don't just stand there looking colorful. Get to work. Steal, plunder, make scary noises.
Surely, someone or something can come in to save the day, right?
That Marmeister conned me. I'd better get Gramps.
You mean the guy who dressed up like a supervillain tricked you because you've clearly not been taught enough lessons on the differences between right and wrong? Surely you jest. So Jody grabs Gramps and...
We gotta find Stanley.
Forget Stanley. We gotta find Hammerman.
Wait a minute!
Please repeat that.
Forget Stanley. We gotta find Hammerman.
Again.
Forget Stanley. We gotta find Hammerman.
One more time.
Forget Stanley. We gotta find Hammerman.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I hope that I am most days, but the theme song clearly states that Gramps and his granddaughter, that's who this girl is, that's his granddaughter, they go searching around the world looking for someone to replace Gramps.
They, as in both of them, as in Gramps and Jody, met a guy named Stanley.
Stanley,
who was dancing every night. They were both so impressed with how out of sight his heart was that Gramps opened up the bag, took out the magical shoes, which then jumped onto Stanley's feet, and he became Hammerman. Hammer, Hammerman, Hammer. This was an occurrence that Jody had to have witnessed, since she and her grandfather, who had previously possessed the shoes, were both traveling in tandem, and yet she conveniently forgets that they're both the same person?
Forget Stanley! We gotta find Hammerman!
I know most cartoons don't have a canonical storyline 100% of the time, but when you make certain details known in your opening credits and then throw that detail out the window, it all but confirms how little effort there was involved in the making of this show, and that they were more focused on cashing in on what was hot instead of taking the time to flesh things out a little. And rant over as Gramps and Jody seek out Stanley, who will help them find Hammerman.
Even though they're both the same person and they already know who he is and...
Please stand by while our host regains his sanity. Please stand by while our host regains his sanity.
So with his time running out, Stanley Hammer goes to the only ex machina that's available at his disposal. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the next winner of the WB's Superstar USA.
Back in my day, we could really play. Do the grounds. Come on, grounds. Do the grounds. I might be out, but my feet ain't come. Do the grounds.
Gramps, listen. It's Stanley singing your song.
Yeah, and he's butchering it. Come on.
That was more than enough to get everybody's attention as Gramps and Jody wipe out the graffiti as if it were the Wicked Witch of the West.
Listen, Flameface, I'm the one that drew you, so I'm the one that undo you.
I'm melting!
Wow. Who knew graffiti made the same sound of pain as a killer whale without water? And yes, I'm using Simpsons clips again. You tell me of a better way to deal with pain without resorting to illegal narcotics. Stanley gets his regular bag back. Jody still thinks they're two different people in spite of my earlier rantings and ravings. And
I wish you could see this.
More frames of animation decide to walk off the job after realizing what they got themselves roped into.
It's about time! It's about hammer time!
And now, ladies and gentledemons, we present probably the #1 reason as to where the other half of the show's budget went and why the show looks cheap in the first place. Simply put, music is expensive.
Hey, yo, monster, in case there's any doubt, the ham man is here to take you out. Can't touch this. Can't touch this.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. You don't even have to see the show to realize that they couldn't even get the syncing of the music and animation right. Good fuck, this may be the most inept animated productions I've ever sat through. And I've sat through what Filmation passed for quality in the 1970s. Fuck, let's just wind this down, alright? Hammerman stops the graffiti with more Batman-style comic book effects that I could probably do a better job of on Microsoft Paint. And the bad guy faces his comeuppance in a way that makes Salvador Dali wonder if he took the wrong acid by mistake.
If you don't go away right now, I'll turn this little artsy smartsy into an art display on the wall forever!
Okay, that's it. Now I am mad.
We're backing off. Just don't hurt her.
I'm a genius!
Yeah, but I'm an artist.
Hey! Yay!
For the visually impaired, Jody somehow manages to paint a cop on a nearby wall, uses the bad guy's God-playing spray to bring it to life, and then arrest him. And everybody learned a valuable lesson.
Drawing that graffiti sure caused a lot of trouble.
Yeah, but drawing that cop sure helped stop it. And maybe if we talked to you and let you know what a great artist you are in the first place, none of this would have happened.
I wish there was something more I could do.
And there are a couple of things.
I no graffitis against the law. Us kids are gonna clean up all the stuff we put on the walls. Like Hammerman says, there's better ways to make your mark in the world.
As long as it's not a fucking cartoon that cut every fucking corner just to appease a pop star who was on his 14th minute and 59th second of fame and ticking. And neither does the real Hammer, who gives us this word of wisdom to close things out.
All right, there's something I want all of you kids to hear loud and clear. Tagging somebody else's property with graffiti is illegal. That's right, it's illegal. And it's wrong. How would you like it if someone marked up your house? You wouldn't like it, would you? So next time you feel like doing a little artwork, do it on some paper, not on somebody else's property. It'll keep you out of a whole lot of trouble. And who knows, you might end up drawing on a cartoon like Hammerman one day. I'm MC Hammer, the Hammerman, and I'm out of here. Peace.
If your life's ambition is to draw for a show like Hammerman as an alternative to graffiti, then hand me a spray can and call me Banksy, because at least that's somewhat more productive than this. Telehell does not endorse vandalism. We're just saying that literally anything else is better than working for Hammerman. Hammerman miraculously lasted 10 episodes, ultimately declaring creative bankruptcy in the winter of 1992. Entertainment Weekly journalist Dalton Ross listed Hammerman at the top of his list of the top 5 most ridiculous things to be turned into a Saturday morning cartoon, and described the show as idiotic, which is far more charitable a critique than I'm willing to give. Quite honestly, I could have used synonyms like foolish, half-witted, witless, brainless, mindless, thoughtless, imprudent, incautious, irresponsible, or, since we've already exceeded our swear word quota for the week, too legit. Too legit for shit. So, where does Hammerman feel my power in Telehell? Let's get it started in the 9 circles.
Limbo, lust, gluttony, greed, wrath, heresy, violence, fraud, treachery.
Hammerman has practically the same problems that most of the cartoons we've covered here so far have in common. There's the fact that it tries to grab as much of that fame and fortune as it possibly can before the well inevitably runs dry, so you know that the producers of this show, as well as the root product, are going to feel some need for greed. The show is made in the hopes that all the devoted fans out there can consume every last available product that's related to the OG with gluttonous desires. The voice actor who portrays the main character in question is not actually voiced by the real deal, so that marks the show for fraud. And because the fantastical reality in this show is being stretched worse than a piece of gum found underneath somebody's seat, there is heresy being directed towards the genuine article until and unless the real Hammer finds a third-act career as an officer of the law. Now that's your superhero. Of course, those are similarities. One major difference between this cartoon and all the other ones is that, in the loosest sense of the word, this was a superhero show. And no matter what the situation is, fighting cartoon crimes will always lead to cartoonish violence, even if the show itself is beyond laughable. But by far, the most egregious offense this show has is not only trying to cash in once again on a flash-in-the-pan trend, but doing so in a way where you can't help but wonder, where exactly did the money go into the production of this show? They had to spend a lot on talent for MC Hammer to appear in those opening and closing segments. They had to spend even more on the rights to use Hammer's hit songs on the show, and that presumably left a budget of, I'm guessing, $6.84 to put into actual animated content, or lack thereof. And the end product turned out to be less than substandard. Not just a lack of care in the animation, which, once again, I wish you could see here. But considering that many people have placed this show on the lists of worst TV cartoon shows of all time, I have to empathize with them. I join you in your wrath over just how low the quality control was. The fact that an established animation house like Deke Entertainment would even let a show of this caliber on the air in the first place leaves me with only one other thing to say. This show can suck my dick proper. Hammerman earned 6 out of 9 circles of Telehell. And thankfully, this is probably the most extreme case of a vanity project run amok that we'll see down here. The only thing that I wish we could have done, and I hate to keep harping on this point, but I really wanted to show you how horrible the animation for this show really was. But alas, this being an audio program, that's gonna have to remain a mystery. I mean, until and unless they perfect the science behind it all, we can only ask that you use your theater of the mind to figure it out, even if it takes 3,000 years to do. What the? What's this? How come I've never heard this sound before, yet somehow it sounds very familiar? And since when did we get an array of lights? And what's this yellow one flashing in front of me? Why is this so familiar? I mean, wait a minute. I know what this is.
We've got TV sign!
Next time on Telehell, well, I guess technically the next thing I'll be doing is riffing on Hammerman on our YouTube page. Check your local listings and social media pages for the exact date and time that we'll be doing that. If I survive that, the next thing we'll be doing is part 2 of The Bonfire of Vanity Projects, as well as part 2 into the shows that fell victim to the Seinfeld curse.
This is the man. This is the show that will make Tuesday nights more than ever must-see TV.
It's the 90s. It's hammer time. Come on.
The Michael Richards Show premieres Tuesday at 8, 7 Central on NBC.
Until then,
if it's not in Telehell, it's not worth a damn.
The part of Baron Lord Sir Pennington J. Thistlewhistle GBE was played by Mike Davison. The part of the Please Stand By guy was played by Rob Maurer. Telehell was written, produced, edited, and narrated by me, Justin Hart. All clips used in this program are protected under the Fair Use Doctrine of the U.S. Copyright Act of 1976, and all clips used come courtesy of their respective companies and owners. Some of the music used in this program comes courtesy of YouTube and their audio library service. Telehell is a production of Horton Road and is distributed by Libsyn. We have reason to believe that the world may soon become an actual living hell in the next few months, if not few years from now. Fortunately, our social media feeds are as close as we're going to get to having heaven on Earth. So please, if you have Facebook, Blue Sky, or yes, even X, follow us at Telehell Podcast. Feel free to chip in to future episodes by giving us a couple coins at our Patreon, also at Telehell Podcast. Like, comment, rate, subscribe wherever you hear this show, particularly Apple, Pandora, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and even our YouTube page, all of which will be either at Telehell Podcast or at Telehell. One way or another, you'll get there. And of course, if you heard something that you didn't quite agree with us on, you're more than welcome to lay it into us at our complaint line, telehellpodcast@gmail.com.
Another great show from Horton Road.